Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for Black news, views, and opinions. Today is Friday, June 3rd, and I'm Mimi Brown.
And I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo. And on today's report, President Biden is calling on Congress to do something to help stop mass shootings that are rocking the nation. We'll tell you more about what he said during last night's televised speech. Meanwhile, Buffalo officials make a decision on the future of a 911 dispatcher who hung up on a person trapped inside the grocery store that was the scene of a mass shooting by a white supremacist. Then, the Klan claims to be alive and growing as it leaves a flyer on the steps of a Mississippi church. We have that story.
Plus, Tommy Davidson does more than tell jokes and act. He actually sings, and just maybe we can get him to sing a little bit of that song today on the show. And LeBron James is always at the top of something. Now he's number one when it comes to bringing home the bacon. It's Friday. We're ready for the weekend. We have all that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth. So let's get it.
President Biden is urging Congress to break years of deadlock and pass new federal gun safety laws. During his primetime address to the nation yesterday, Mr. Biden called on lawmakers to ban the sale of assault-style weapons. He also wants them to expand background checks and pass red flag laws.
I support the bipartisan efforts that include a small group of Democrats and Republican senators trying to find a way. But my God, the fact that the majority of the Senate Republicans don't want any of these proposals even to be debated or come up for a vote, I find unconscionable.
The president added if a ban doesn't happen, lawmakers should at least raise the age to purchase a gun from 18 to 21. The primetime speech comes after the House Judiciary Committee spent all day yesterday debating a package that would do just that, raise the age limit on assault weapons, as well as ban high-capacity magazines and require safer gun storage. However, such sweeping reform is not expected to pass the Senate. I watched that speech. President Biden did a really good job just conveying to the American people what he wanted to do about, all the gun mass shootings that we're seeing. I mean, for one, he said, expand background checks, create new rules for safety storing your weapons, and act new red flag laws that would prevent the gun sales to those with criminal records. So with that being said, criminal records, I wish he would have expanded a little bit more, because we know that Black and brown people, we have criminal records for the smallest things. If someone has a marijuana charge from 1994, that shouldn't take away their Second Amendment right. But so I'd like to see how that dive a little bit deeper into that. But there were just a lot of great things that he said. Real liability shields for gun manufacturers, meaning that they would remove the protection that gun manufacturers have from being sued. And I think if we do that, they're making these high-capacity weapons. They're marketing to people, to young people, to just people who don't need to have a gun. But if they're found liable, I think we'll take away some of the mass shootings that we're seeing right now, too.
Absolutely. When we experienced the Buffalo mass shooting, that was the one thing that I mentioned during that, was that the red flag law, he was able to evade the red flag state law. And so pretty much what red flag state laws are, they protect people. They're designed pretty much to keep firearms away from people who could harm themselves or others. And we also talked about the Buffalo shooter a year before that. He also had mental illness. He also mentioned something in his classroom about murder, about suicide. So he was the person that should not have been able to get a gun, and yet he still was able to get a gun. And so I really want to focus on, and back to your point, maybe Biden did a really great job, but I really want to focus on the red state flag law and how people are able to bypass that, because you shouldn't be able to bypass that. It should be ironclad, and it should be in your system. Like we said before about getting different medications, it's in your system. So it should be the same system that if you shouldn't have a gun, you also shouldn't be able to buy a gun.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And Biden has a lot of work to do. President Biden does. There's a lot of things that his administration has not signed, has not pushed through. We know it's not all in his control. But when he mentioned Columbine and Sandy Hook and Charleston, Orlando, Las Vegas, Parkland, and nothing was done. And now we had what happened in Buffalo and Uvalde. If nothing is done after this, I don't know what we're going to do as a country. It's just not good overall. So hoping they can make some changes.
Sadly, though, I don't think I do think that majority of people want common sense gun laws, but I do think a lot of people in the Senate, a lot of Republicans in the Senate are beholden to the NRA, beholden to the profits and the money that they're getting. And so if children being murdered are not enough to change the gun laws, I really don't know where we are.
Maybe I'm absolutely with you. I think that people definitely care more about the NRA and the money that the NRA brings in, and the people who fund the NRA and the people who endorse the NRA versus the people that are dying on the streets. Because sadly, if it doesn't affect you personally, and this goes for across the board in the world, if it doesn't affect you personally, there is no tie. So if your family wasn't affected in Buffalo or in the OC or in Uvalde, Texas, then it's kind of like that's their problem, not mine. Now, speaking of Uvalde, Texas, the commander at the scene of the fatal school shooting apparently did not know about the panicked 911 calls from children inside with the gunman. That's according to a Texas State Senator Roland Gutierrez, who represents San Antonio, and he says that Pete Arendana was not told of the calls. Gutierrez says that it illustrates the lack of coordination that it took for and during this time of the school shooting. And investigators said that 911 calls from teachers and students began around 30 minutes after the gunman entered the school. Texas Department of Public Safety Director Stephen McCraw, he says that the commander believed no children were in danger at the time because he did not know any survived inside the classroom that was attacked. And that is the scary part. You know, I want to go back to one thing he said. He called it a lack of communication and a system failure. And so we're talking about, even in the story that we just talked about, we're just going to call it a lack of communication. We're just going to call it a system failure. When lives were taken away, 21 lives were lost, 19 children, 19 babies that were 10 years old in fourth grade. We cannot call that a lack of communication. We cannot call that a system error. It is a deeply rooted issue with gun laws and AR-15s and assault-style rifles. That is not, we cannot just put a Band-Aid over that and call that a lack of communication.
You know what, Demi? Even if he thought that no children had survived in the classroom, he still knew that there was an armed man in the building with other kids in other classrooms. So the fact that maybe you didn't get the 911 calls, I really don't believe that, but maybe you didn't hear that there were 911 calls being made. The fact that even if all these kids didn't survive, you knew there was a gunman in there with a rifle who had just shot a whole classroom. You still should have went in there immediately because you knew there were other kids in the classrooms, in different classrooms that needed to be saved. So the threat was not over. So I just, for me, this explanation doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense.
No. You got to man up and stop pointing fingers, because it brings me and makes me very concerned the fact that they dropped the ball. You're trained as a police officer, one, to put your life on the line to protect and serve. Two, you're trained for the situation. It's been happening in our country for decades. So with that being said, you have to be better. Just accept your accountability that you failed at this. Lives were lost. We apologize. That's not going to bring anyone's life back. But however, what you can do is say, here's what we're going to do moving forward, and here's the blueprint for the rest of the country. Hopefully we can get to that. All right, in Buffalo, a 911 dispatcher is unemployed. They were fired for how they handled a call from a person inside the top grocery store during the May 14th mass shooting. The dispatcher reportedly asked the grocery store manager, Letitia Rogers, why she was whispering into the phone, then hung up on her. Erie County officials say dispatchers are taught to continue to communicate with callers who are whispering because they are often within earshot of the attacker. Letitia Rogers says she was hiding behind the customer service counter when the assailant was gunning down people in the store.
And we're learning more about this week's shooting at a medical office in Oklahoma. Police say the gunman killed his doctor and 3 others in a targeted attack. According to police, the gunman left a note blaming his doctor, Preston Phillips, for ongoing back pain following a recent surgery. The 3 other victims were a doctor, a medical worker, and a patient. Police say the gunman, Michael Lewis, shot and killed himself following the attack.
In Ohio, Governor Mike Dewey, he says that he will sign a bill that allows school districts to arm employees. Employees could be armed as soon as this fall, thanks to legislation approved by Republican state lawmakers. But critics say it's the wrong move. State Democrats say that it sends the wrong message a week after the Uvalde massacre. Major law enforcement groups and gun control advocates and the state's teachers union are also against this idea.
WNBA star Brittney Griner is communicating with her colleagues by email and letters. Her supporters say it's a small bit of normalcy for a person who has been held captive by Russian authorities for almost 4 months now. Hundreds of letters have been sent to an email address set up to allow Griner to connect with the outside world. Griner's lawyers say they are printed out and delivered to her sporadically in bunches. After they are approved, of course, by Russian officials, Griner doesn't have an access to a computer, so she responds with a handwritten letter, or she dictates a response if she doesn't have paper. She was detained in February after vape cartridges containing cannabis oil were allegedly found in her luggage at a Moscow airport.
And the Biden administration is pushing back on recent reports that there's a mass exodus of black staffers leaving the White House. In a memo sent to the White House, staffers provided by the Griot, the administration's put together a list of commitments it's making to support and retain a diverse staff. Published reports claim nearly 24 black staffers have resigned in recent months. Biden officials say many of those staffers have worked for the president during the presidential campaign, and they're just now looking for other opportunities. They also say some are just taking a break from the demands of the government and political work. The article said black staffers were leaving because there were few opportunities for promotion.
And members of a black church in Mississippi, they say that they discovered a Ku Klux Klan flyer on the steps of the building. The flyer that was left on the Union Hall Mississippi Missionary Baptist Church in DeSoto, it said that KKK is alive and growing in 14 different states. Members of the church, they say the flyer will not stop them from doing the good work that they've been doing in the community. The Southern Poverty Law Center, it says that the flyer is a new tactic by white supremacists who claim to be growing in size when the truth is the opposite.
Memory has become the focus of Bill Cosby's civil lawsuit trial in Los Angeles. Judith Hoot says Cosby sexually assaulted her at the Playboy Mansion back in 1975 when she was only 16. A forensic psychiatrist and expert in sexual assault took the stand yesterday. She said traumatic memories from sexual assault are encoded strongly in the brain and are less likely to erode over time. But the accuracy of her memory and the lapse in time before she went public has been the focus of Cosby's defense team. Hoot did not come forward with her accusations until 2014, 39 years after the attack allegedly happened.
And a U.S. court judge in Texas is siding with a conservative group that says the University of Houston's anti-discrimination policy is a violation of free speech. The judge blocked the school from re-implementing a former version of that policy after a lawsuit was filed by Speech First, a conservative student group on campus. The school policy says students will be expelled or put on probation if they subject their peers to unlawful and persistent treatment because of their race, color, gender, or sexual orientation. The group that sued to end that policy of banning slurs and disparaging jokes on campus.
The Child Welfare Office in Oregon will no longer use an algorithm that helps them decide which families should be investigated by social workers. The move comes after an Associated Press review of an algorithm that was used in Pennsylvania, and it showed that it flagged black children at a disproportionate number of mandatory neglect investigations. Oregon officials say they will use a more equitable system to determine which families need to be investigated. Social workers in Pennsylvania, they complained to supervisors that the computer system that picked families to be looked at was often inaccurate.
A Louisiana library is banning schools displays that focus on Black History Month, LGBTQ Pride Month, as well as Cajun heritage from its shelves. The director of the Lafayette Parish Library says he made this decision to avoid conflict within the community. Danny Gillen says everything has become a fight, so he wants to avoid anyone calling for books to be removed. The policy also affects Women's History and Native American History Month. Battles over what books should be on public and school library shelves have become an issue in Republican-controlled states around the nation.
And an all-white cheer group in California is under fire today for taking a picture with black mannequin heads. The girls at the San Ramon school reportedly referred to the head as Kareem, which is supposed to be their mascot. The photo was reposted on Instagram of a page of the account called Black Bay Area. The person who posted the photo said the picture was racist. The San Ramon School District says the school does not condone the photo and will increase its sensitivity training. It is racist to have this photo and pose with it and call this your mascot, and then to name it Kareem. It's not funny. It's not a joke. And one of the mothers from that team, well, not from the team, but from the school district, says that her daughter wanted to be on the team, but because there was a lack of representation, there was no other black kids on the squad. She didn't put her child on the cheer squad. So I don't know. It seems like they're lacking some sort of diversity in this school.
Yeah, I mean, Demi looks a little
Yeah, like
speechless
she
on
wants
it,
to
but
say
it's so disrespectful in so many different ways, and it's just sad that in 2022 we're seeing more of this. Like, this is something that maybe, like, my parents would say when we grew up, we saw a lot of this, we had to deal with a lot of this, but it's happening over and over again, which lets us know what? There's a very big division, or this country is divided, and we understand that. So as much as we try to push issues and bring it back together, it's small things like this that make us, just take steps back.
You know, guys, sometimes I have to walk back my statements. I do have to recant what I say, and I might regret this on Monday. But looking at the photo, it's a mannequin head. It's not a doll. Like, it's not a black doll. It's just a mannequin head that people that hairstylists use to design hair and come up with hairstyles. I am always on top of. No, that's racist. I am on top of it. This in particular, I'm just not seeing. I don't want to make this cheer group of girls to be a race. I just don't want to put that on all these girls that they're all racist.
If the mannequin was Karen and
I
not
was gonna say,
Kareem,
the name.
then maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation.
So we're upset more about the name.
The name shows intent. The name,
it kind of solidifies
so
what we feel it is.
So there can't be a white girl named Kareem.
Do you know one?
Okay.
I don't know any white girls.
Okay.
I just don't want to make this entire cheer squad to be a racist. There have been some
We
racist
don't
things,
either.
like blackface. When you have this is a black baby doll. This is like a black Barbie doll. Okay, we get it, but it's just a tinted. It's a tinted doll. It's a tinted head. It's not even. It's just a head that makeup artists use. I don't want to make these girls to be racist. I don't
feel
know
like
about
the
this
entire
one.
school district would disagree, only because they are investigating it now.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of the parents are also.
Well, they have to. If someone sounds the alarm that it's racist and makes it like the name is
This
Karen,
country
they
is
have
more
to.
sensitive than ever now.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It is
I
what
mean,
it is,
right.
yeah.
We are extra sensitive, but I do think they meant this in a way where they thought they were being funny.
Okay.
That's what I think. I don't.
All
If they
right.
would have named her Tammy, I would have been like, But Kareem
But
says
Tammy's a black
intent.
name, though.
But it could have been either or. Okay, we got to move on.
Yeah,
but
we
it could
gotta
have
move
been
on.
could have been either or.
Okay, well,
right.
Poor Kareem. All right, Governor John Bel Edwards says that he will testify in an investigation into the alleged cover-up of a black man beaten to death by state police. Louisiana lawmakers asked Edwards and his top lawyers to testify before a State House committee into the 2019 death of Ronald Green. This comes after the Associated Press reported Edwards and his lawyers watched the police cam and that video of Green being beat brutally during that arrest. That video didn't get into prosecutors' hands for almost 2 years, and Edwards, he denies that there was a cover-up.
All right, a federal judge in Nebraska says prosecutors are not liable for the death of a white bar owner who killed himself after he was charged for shooting to death a BML protester. The judge says there was no legal basis to conclude the prosecutors are liable for the death of Jay Gardner, and Gardner shot and killed James Scurlock in Omaha during a fight outside Gardner's bar. After he was charged with manslaughter in the fatal shooting, Gardner committed suicide. A county prosecutor initially refused to indict Gardner, but a grand jury eventually indicted Gardner, and Gardner's family accused prosecutors of violating their family members' constitutional rights.
And a black Charlotte woman says her luxury high-rise is trying to evict her because neighbors complained about her daughter and a friend twerking at the building's pool. Marchette Foster and her 21-year-old daughter say they received an eviction notice in April. They say a building concierge alerted them to the complaints by building residents about the twerking incident. The family says the eviction notice cited extremely unacceptable behavior at the pool as the reason for the eviction. But Foster says the issue follows a pattern of harassment by white residents against them. She says her daughter has been assaulted in the past by guests of other residents. Foster says she has hired an attorney and will fight the eviction.
So now they're going to have signs saying no twerking. Okay.